Marco,
Sean,
how you doing, eh?
doing good. About you?
Hey, no,
Can you
good,
imagine like you got
you gotta say the A.
An Italian trying to do a Canadian accent? So I don't know. Really, you had to go there? You
I
hate me
do
that
have to go there.
much? You know what
I do hate you that much.
I mean?
Hate to love you that much.
Well,
No, I'm Canada,
Canada. I
Toronto
know.
more
It's at that
specifically.
time of the year.
It's that time of year.
The foliage is falling, getting like all beauty.
Well, if people listen to the episode last year. I drove up from Manhattan to Toronto. Took a week,
It took
and
you a
that
while
took
because
it
you
took
were
me a
stopping
while
every minute.
because I stopped every minute and I hiked all over the place. It was a non-cyber drive. It was really cool. A lot of pictures, a lot of color. And then I got to Toronto and saw a lot of friends and met some new folks and talked all things cyber that we
Yep.
can. It's coming up again. Last day of September, first day of October. I think it
Yeah.
crosses over.
And that's SecTor, which you haven't
That's
said
SecTor,
yet. So
which is a Black
SecTor.
Hat conference. Exactly.
Yeah, and we love Black Hat, so
We
we're gonna
do.
be there too. Although I'm sorry to break it to you, but you don't get to take pictures this
I don't.
year
I don't get to
because
drive
we're
up.
doing a remote coverage, which
I
is
know.
still fun, especially before the event, and that's what we're doing here today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce the guest?
Well, I think the guest is Cristin Flynn Goodwin. Thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here.
And you're a keynote speaker. Congratulations on getting that spot. Or sorry you have that spot to try to awe and inspire an audience that is, yeah, I think sometimes can be challenging. They look at things negatively, right?
That's okay.
Cyber.
I
Yeah,
welcome it.
exactly.
Our industry is one of the few where we refer to ourselves as a community. It's a
Right.
security community. So even if it's hard messages, that's still okay because we're still a
Exactly.
community. So I love it.
Yeah. No,
And
I love it too.
there's a community that love a challenge. This is the one, right?
Exactly.
It's not. It's okay if you start with everything is. It's a mess. Okay, how do we resolve this, right?
Exactly.
So
How do we
you
come
just
together?
don't need to pick the right mess for the
Well,
right audience.
talking about the right mess. I think AI is certainly at the top of the list.
That's a
Agentic
mess.
AI is another, and I think you're doing some fun things connecting identity to that mess, Kristen, which is going to be fun. So we're going to get into that in a moment. But if you could please, maybe a few moments to kind of give us a highlight of some of the things you've worked on in the past and where you're currently up to now that leads us into this agentic AI and identity topic that you're going to be presenting on.
For sure. I got my start as a baby lawyer, not in cybersecurity, but in securities. And I worked on the 85th floor of Tower 1 of the World Trade Center. And I
Wow.
knew that that was not the role for me. And I managed to get hired a long time ago by MCI WorldCom as they were building out their very first internet law team. And so I was given the opportunity to pick, do you want privacy or do you want security? I picked security. And by just sheer happenstance, my client was Vint Cerf, the founder of TCP/IP and one of the
Hmm.
fathers of the modern internet. And he was super active in advising the White House. It was a really active time in the wake of Y2K back then. And then, of course, 9/11 happened. And so we became extremely active in working with the White House. And I never looked back on cybersecurity. That just became my mission in life. So helped build from the private sector side the national strategy to secure cyberspace, worked on every major piece of legislation after I left MCI WorldCom. As you may recall, way back when they had some troubles. I had an operational role for a few years at Bell South, running national security and emergency response. Joined Microsoft in 2006, spent 2 years as their head cyber lobbyist, moved to Redmond, and then spent the remainder of my career, almost 15, 16, 17 years there, as the head cybersecurity lawyer. So I was supporting the Microsoft Security Response Center, the Microsoft Threat Intelligence Center, and responsible for coordinating and sharing information with governments all around the world. So for the past 25 years, I've been at the epicenter of almost every major incident we've had. Since leaving Microsoft, I have set up my own law firm where I work with companies, particularly cyber lawyers, helping them work through cybersecurity incidents and set up plans and programs inside their companies. And I consult with Good Harbor Security Risk Management, which is a company founded by Richard Clarke, the former White House cyber czar who ran that very first national strategy that I worked on way back in 2003. So full circle. So I still stay incredibly active in cyber, but that story arc of the impact of 9/11 and how I get to look for opportunities to have impact and solve hard problems has been persistent throughout.
Yep. Serious
Wow.
programs, serious impact. I mean,
You've
super cool.
seen a lot of things, right? And here we are in the, somebody call it the age of AI, and if we talking about events, I'm sure that if you're going to play the game of what's the buzzword at that event, I can tell you what it was at Black Hat in Las Vegas and what it was at RSA conference. So I'm going to bet on Agentic AI. And I know that actually that's kind of like at the core of your keynote session. So why did you pick that as a part of your everyday consulting? Like, it's coming up a lot.
It absolutely is. I mean, agentic AI is front of mind for everybody. It has to be. Ever since November of 2022, when ChatGPT burst into our public consciousness, it's hard to imagine we lived in a time before it. It's become so embedded in our day-to-day lives. But as AI, and particularly agentic AI, becomes more a part of our lives, it also reminds us that we had this huge gaping problem in cybersecurity that came before that we hadn't solved. And that's the problem of identity. And the identity issue for people, which is where we started in the internet, has not yet been solved. A lot of consumers don't have MFA applied on even some of their most important accounts. Maybe a bank account, lots of other accounts, probably not. When you're in companies, depending upon the size of the company, your mileage may vary on the strength and the depth of identity and access management protections. And so as we take the backdrop of the sort of turmoil we have in identity and access management just pre-AI, and then we put this accelerant on top of it, where every AI agent can exist, that's frightening, especially if you're a CISO, when you think about the risks of liability and the risks of regulators coming in once attacks and exploits happen, wanting to know why these issues weren't being remediated. So this is a front of mind conversation.
Before I let Sean go, I'm smiling and laughing by myself because I'm thinking about that very famous joke that nobody knows your dogs on the internet. That was from 1996, I believe. And so talking about identity, it was just a completely different problem back then. But you're right. I mean, identity has been at the core of everything happening on the web. Either they know you're a dog or not, or they think you're not, or maybe now is an AI dog. Well,
that's absolutely. And if you think about one of the things we know about cyber attacks and attackers is that it's easy to be lazy. Why go invest in creating a brand new type of attack when you can take something that you know works well and repeat it? So we know that elder fraud and abuse online is a tactic that works well. We also know that spoofing is an attack tactic that works well. You can anticipate that attackers are going to figure out how to have AI agents that might look like somebody's bank and might have all the logos and act like somebody's bank. But you can anticipate that they're going to start scooping up pertinent account information, usernames, passwords. You can just predict the abuse that will come against consumers first. And then you can also predict the more nefarious attacks that will come against agents as both cyber criminals and nation state actors figure out how is the most efficient way to go about collecting intelligence or figuring out a way to go monetize a criminal scheme. And if we don't think consistently now about how do you come up with a way to know if an AI agent is good or bad, is yours or not, is somebody to be trusted or somebody to be rejected, we are opening ourselves up to an era of turmoil that we don't necessarily have to have.
This so on my show, I cover a lot of things cyber related to business operations and policies and risk management, and it tends to be looked at in terms of, am I following regulatory guidelines, and or am I protecting the business from fraud and attack and other things like that? And then I think about there's the individual as well, which you're kind of touching on here, that they have an identity and they might interact with agents that might be valid agents, they might be spoofed agents, but we're also, as humans, individuals, using AI agents, either whether we know it or not, acting on our behalf. And as we continue to automate and orchestrate our lives through phones and other applications that are connecting a bunch of services together, we're going to be using a lot of services that are AI driven, agent driven, and some of them may be good or bad. And I'm wondering, from a lawyer perspective, legal perspective, what do we have to think about as individuals as we move forward into this world of agentic AI?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, because I think that we were just starting to see in 2023 and forward regulations that were starting to put pressure on companies, and particularly on leadership, and trickling down to CISOs, getting more responsible about cybersecurity policies, practices, procedures. The New York Department of Financial Services, the NYDFS cybersecurity regulation, is a great example of a really detailed playbook for identity and access management for a company. If you don't know where to start, and you're trying to figure out what you should be doing for cybersecurity basics, start there, because if you can satisfy that regulation, you at least have a ground floor to come in on. For the individual side, there's not a lot of guidance about what to do. You're sort of at the mercy of the company that you pick from a service provider perspective, doing the right things for you. Fortunately, if you are on the Google ecosystem or the Apple ecosystem or the Microsoft ecosystem, the companies do care about you having credentials and not being open to cyber attacks. The companies have their own nuances and flavors of how they go about that. The hard part for consumers in particular is that you don't have an enterprise version of defense. Consumer accounts can't be managed, so you're on your own. And there's no individual consumer who is ever going to be able to beat a persistent nation state attacker or a thoughtful cyber criminal if they choose to go after them. You don't have the tools, you don't have the technology, you don't have the abilities. And so that makes it an unfair fight. When you add agentic AI into the mix, where the attackers' emails are going to be perfect, no more grammar and spelling errors, the logo placements are going to be perfect. It will be so much harder when the attackers can use AI to hyper personalize attacks. Then the likelihood of individuals being able to determine that, at least fast enough to know before they've clicked that poisonous link, that's going to get really hard.
It's funny is that before you were looking for the mistake and the spelling, and now you look, if it's too perfect, it's probably AI. Right? We went all the way
the
around.
N dashes and the M dashes.
If it repeats itself, says the same thing five times different ways.
That too. Now, I was reading here. Let's get into your keynotes in more specific, like who is for and so on. But before you go there, there's one thing that I could have an entire episode of my show, which is Redefining Society and Technology, because it says that each agentic AI agent will also have its own identity. And it kind of sparked something in my head, and I'm like, of course, that's the only way is it really you who you say you are? It's the same thing that's dealing with the human. So can you elaborate on that and
Yeah,
start talking about your
absolutely.
keynotes too?
One of the things that we do not yet have is a consistent and repeatable way to identify what are the attributes of an agent and what are the attributes that should always be present. Should all agents be digitally signed? Should all agents have verifiable credentials? How would they be verified? Is that company to company? Is that with like an ICANN like service? We don't yet have the rules of the
Yeah, what's gonna
road
happen?
for this type
Right.
of process. When you add in the reality that AI agents are also going to be able to be ephemeral. So in a multi-agent ecosystem, you can have an agent create another agent for just a couple of seconds to go and execute another task and then disappear. So with an ephemeral agent that will only exist for a particular function and a point in time, you're going to have identities that are dynamic, that are lowest zero privilege access, that are going to be auditable, that are going to be remotely controllable, and you're going to have to be able to do this at scale through machine controls because they will be faster than any human could possibly be. So technology is going to have to be invented that will help enable defense teams to be able to manage and hunt through this sort of telemetry too. That is daunting for any CISO. I think the other nuance that I'd pull out there is that sort of like Jeff Goldblum says in Jurassic Park, nature finds a way. Like employees will find a way to create shadow AI agents as well if they find processes or controls are too onerous. So the other thing that CISOs are going to have to worry about is, will employees create their own AI agents outside of the controls that the company may have that's then accessing company data, customer data, other sensitive company systems, and then executing functions that are outside the control of the IT team, which is terrifying because it takes shadow IT and then empowers it like a really offensive digital insider.
There's so much here, obviously, which is
My keynote will be 6 hours long. It'll be
that's
great.
right, which is why you have a keynote for one. I think Marco and I could each have multiple episodes on this topic with you. No question about it. Um, Perhaps as we wrap here, a few notes on who you're really speaking to. I've heard the CISO role mentioned a few times here. Are there other folks you expect to be at the conference that will gain value from what you're presenting, and maybe what are some of the key takeaways you think they'll walk home with?
For sure. I think that this is relevant for anyone who's in a technical policy role. So that could be standards. So much is being developed in the standards world right now around this, and all of the AI and identity frameworks that were created in the past 5 years are all going to have to get pushed forward to go and build out this new ecosystem. So there's a lot of technical policy and technical conformance that's going to have to be done. So I think that for those who are in the security ecosystem, this talk is for those folks as well. This talk is absolutely for anybody who has to implement and think about risk management, because we have the legacy risk of yesterday's identity, today's risk of agentic AI coming into these ecosystems, and then we'll touch on what happens in 2030 when Q-Day hits and we add the acceleration of quantum computing into agentic AI, where it will make all of this happen so much faster. And so for anybody who's doing future planning, this is also a talk for them too.
Are you trying to make our heads explode? Dropping Q Day in there too.
First talk of the
Oh,
conference, we got to start big.
Oh my
It
goodness.
just sounded so much like the Matrix and Mr. Smith just being everywhere at the same time. And no, it's probably not a case that, Keanu Reeves is from Canada. So here we go. I just reconnected everything.
There we go.
There you go.
Well, let's throw in there that all
that's
this
it,
is
just
going
a
to
little
run
bit.
on. This is all going to run on devices too. So us humans won't even have to be in the mix. Robots and PLCs and sensors and everything else will be agentic enabled.
Yeah,
It's
just
crazy.
take the blue and the red pill.
Yeah, why not?
Just take them both.
Go purple team. Why not?
Well, you can ask ChatGPT because it'll tell you anyways, right?
Exactly.
That's right.
He knows everything.
Boy.
Okay,
All right,
this was
so-
great. It definitely inspired me to have some more identity and AI agent conversation for
Yes.
the way we interact with them and how they're going to be more and more part of our everyday life. In the meantime, this is a pre-event conversation about SecTor, which will happen in Toronto, September 30th, October 2nd, 2025. And we are not going to be on location, but we are covering it. So I invite everybody to stay tuned. And for those actually that are on location, you should definitely go and check out the keynote session with Cristin Flynn Goodwin. I would definitely go if I were there. And I know Sean would be with me. So
I know. Agentic AI and identity, the biggest problem we're not solving, though Kristen's going to help you start solving it. October 1st, that's Wednesday, 9 to 10. Keynote session there. Kristen, congrats. Thank you so much for doing this work, sharing it at the conference, giving us a snippet of what's happening here on ITSP Magazine, and our audience, I'm sure, appreciates it as well. So thank you.
Thanks so much. I look forward to the conversation up at SecTor.
take care.